Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Muhammad Ali, Jesse Owens, Jackie Robinson. These are all African American influential people that had an impact on civil rights movement. Just like Jackie Robinson and Jesse Owens, Muhammad Ali was a professional world-class athlete that was influential in civil rights movements. Louisville, Kentucky. Muhammad Ali was a heavyweight boxing champion that got his title taken away after he refused to be introduced into the military. Although he stayed out of prison since his case got appealed to the Supreme Court, but even then, did he not box for 43 months, which is equivalent to 3 years and 7 months. That's 7 months more than what he was supposed to.
Thurgood Marshall was born on July 2nd, 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was a towering figure in the civil rights movement and the first African American justice to serve on the United States Supreme Court. His biggest case of his life was Brown versus the Board of Education, where he unsegregated most of the schools in Baltimore, Maryland, and around the world. Led some segregated schools to be unsegregated and all colors of children to go to school. Also, Thurgood Marshall was a towering figure in the civil rights movement and he was the first African American justice to serve on the United States Supreme Court. Malcolm X was a minister, human rights activist, and prominent Black nationalist leader. Born May 19, 1925. His original name, #Islamic name, is El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. He is an African American Muslim human rights activist in prison. In January 19th, Little was arrested. Malcolm Little. He was arrested for burglary and weapons possession charges and received a 10-year sentence in the Massachusetts prison system. While incarcerated, Malcolm's siblings introduced him to the Nation of Islam. Like I said earlier, he got inverted in prison, which is the Nation of Islam is a tiny Black nationalist-oriented group led by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Martin Luther King, born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, was a minister and civil rights leader. He believed that African Americans could gain rights through peaceful, non-violent protests and continued to peacefully protest even though the reaction from white people was very violent. He formed a group called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference along with Bayard Rustin, Joseph Lowery, Ralph Abernathy, and Fred Shuttleworth. Martin Luther King led 250,000 people on a civil rights march along with other leaders in Washington, D.C., where they called the president and Congress to pass a law that guaranteed equal opportunity for all African Americans. This was called the March on Washington, and this happened in 1963.
Although not everybody that participated is recognized, there were also a lot of people that helped out in riots, boycotts, marches, and speeches, just in general, that really contributed to civil rights movements. Things that really took place during civil rights movements were sit-ins, which is basically where African American people would walk into restaurants and just sit on counters waiting to get served. White people would walk towards them, throw food at them, hit them, but they would just stay in their seat and refuse to get up until getting served. Another example of this would be the Montgomery Bus boycott, which took place in Montgomery, Alabama, and it basically happened after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat for a white man, and she got arrested to later then get bailed out of jail by Martin Luther King. And Montgomery bus boycotts were basically organized where people, African Americans more specifically, would not ride the buses and would carpool or just walk to where they needed to go. Another example of this would be Montgomery bus boycotts, where African Americans would not ride a bus or would carpool or walk to wherever they needed to go. After Rosa Parks got arrested when she refused to give up her seat for a white person in a bus, she eventually got bailed out by Dr. Martin Luther King, but bus boycotts were essentially organized to keep segregation away from buses.
On January 7, 1966, Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference announced plans for the Chicago Freedom Movement campaign to mark the expansion of their civil rights activities from the South to northern cities. Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, along with Chicago activist Albert Rapley, chose Chicago because of its history as the most racially segregated city in the nation. Activists hope that by changing the laws and practices to allow open housing, the ability of black homeowners to purchase homes in any area they could financially afford, that African Americans will gain improved housing, better schools, and great job opportunities.
Not all protests were peaceful. Often cops would sit K9 units and hose the protesters down, even though it was not illegal to protest. Also, due to the fact that there were no laws or restrictions for police brutality like there is now.